So today is a super cool day. I've invited MJ, who is a therapist here in Austin who works closely with the Fair Recovery, and she is an expert, but I'm going to let her kind of tell you a little bit more about what she does and her credentials. But I need you to know that today's going to be a whole lot of fun, but it's going to be incredibly insightful. Number one, for the betrayed, because I think oftentimes the betrayeds, they know what they feel, but they don't know why they feel what they feel. So this is going to be phenomenal for you, but also for the unfaithful, because I think it's vital that the unfaithful understands what the betrayed is feeling. So if we can help also the unfaithful get an idea for why the betrayed does what they do, male or female, why they feel what they feel. And if you as an unfaithful can understand what the betrayed is feeling, it makes recovery at least a little bit easier and a lot more palatable, because you know why your betrayed spouse or partner is doing what they're doing. And sometimes that's half the battle, right? So MJ, why don't you share a little bit about who you are, what you do, your credentials, all that fun stuff.
Sure. So I'm MJ Denis, and I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Texas. I'm also a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm also an ASECT certified sex therapist. ASECT is an organizing body who certifies sex therapists in the United States. I'm also an APSAT certified partner trauma specialist. And what that means is I leaned into becoming educated in sex addiction or compulsive betrayal behaviors. I didn't become a CSAT where I focus on treating the person with the addiction. Instead, I became certified in treating the partner's trauma.
That's great. So you are seeing why I let her introduce herself with all those specifications and certifications. I mean, at the end of the day, we're just honored that you would be here with us today.
Thank you.
So we talked beforehand, and I actually have lots of notes because there's so much I want to ask you, because, I mean, this is really a great honor for us to have you here. We talked about, when dealing with infidelity, the concept of human attachment, and as kind of an understanding of why betrayal hurts so much. So maybe take a few minutes first to talk about, how human attachment works, which then kind of explains why infidelity is so devastating.
Yes. So in talking about attachment, I think one way to approach it is to think about we humans as one of the animals on the planet. Each animal who's on the planet has ways of keeping themselves safe, right? Bears have claws and snakes have fangs. Well, we humans, we have ways that we keep ourselves safe. One way humans keep themselves safe, we have a frontal lobe. The front part of our brain controls impulses and helps us to think critically, right? And so critical thinking can keep us safe sometimes. We have another part of our brain called the amygdala. This is the part of the brain that detects danger or threat. And we really need the amygdala to scan for danger and threat. And that keeps us safe. Well, we also have this thing called attachment. Humans tend to attach with other humans for safety. And so one way we can look at this is, if we think about babies, when babies are born, we are not the kind of creature who can crawl off into the woods and eat berries and grass, right? We humans need other humans to pick us up, to care for us, to change us, to feed us. And so when we are babies and children, we will attach or bond with our caregivers. As we grow up, we then attach not with our caregivers, but we attach with our person, right? We pick a buddy, and we go on the buddy system for safety. I think about kids, kindergartners. When kindergartners are in school and they raise their hand, they say, I need to go to the restroom. The teacher will say, get your buddy, go to the restroom, right? You go for safety. You go on field trips, you get a buddy, and you go for safety. And so if we think about the adult version of attachment, we choose a partner, a spouse, and this partner becomes our buddy, and we go in the buddy system.
Right.
And so attachment, when humans attach, it's like super glue, and we will attach with our person. And so even though we don't say, hey, I pick you because you're going to keep me safe, really the subconscious, the underlying message is, I've got your back, you've got my back. If I attach with you, it's so that we can be safe together. We can go out in the world and live our lives and do what we need to do and come back to the safety of us.
Right.
And so that attachment it's like super glue.
I think that makes total sense. So continuing with that thought, can you speak to what you talk about as attachment distress and how that leads to primal panic? And maybe you can share a few thoughts about those concepts.
Okay, so going back to attachment and the buddy system. So if we pick our person, pick our partner, and we bond with them, we attach with them. Human attachment is like super glue. It's so strong. People will stay in unhealthy relationships or relationships where there is distress because attachment is so strong.
And that's maybe why some people, their spouse is still actively involved in an affair, but they can't leave or they can't draw boundaries, right?
Yes. If we go back to this idea that we humans are animals, we're mammals, right? We're human mammals. And so we as mammals, human mammals will attach for safety. And so once we're in that relationship, even if the relationship is distressing, people will stay and wonder, why am I staying? Because they are bonded together.
That's right.
Now, if someone is having an affair, if there's some kind of secretive behavior, it's a breaking away from the couple. And in that place, when somebody is turning away from their relationship, the person who is betrayed will experience what we call attachment distress. On a very primal level, because we are animals, because we are human mammals, when we feel this break and we become aware that betrayal has happened, not to over dramatize it, but it is profound, the distress that people will experience. In my practice and working with couples who've experienced infidelity, I hear betrayed spouses say, upon learning about the affair or about the betrayal, I fell to my knees. I sobbed a guttural sob. I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't sleep. And they'll experience this profound distress and say, why do I even care? Why is it so dramatic for me?
Really?
And I go back to, you are a human, you are a mammal, you are attached to your person, and you are experiencing this attachment distress that creates a profound experience for you.
And that kind of whittles away at what we self-proclaimed genius unfaithfuls think when we just say, you're overreacting, you're freaking out, you're making such a big deal out of it. I mean, we're completely missing the tangible distress that they are feeling, which many times leads towards PTSD, right, in betrayed spouses. And so that primal panic, I mean, what, in those moments, I mean, is it reflective that some people, have this, they fall to their knees, they're overwhelmed, and some people, would you say, kind of shut down? Like they just kind of close up and shut down? Is that a normal, both sides of the coin and then everything in between?
Let me answer this way. Let's go back to what I talked about earlier with the amygdala, the part of the brain that's always scanning for danger and threat. When the amygdala detects danger or threat, it will send out the signal for adrenaline to course through our bodies. Adrenaline is designed to help us to either fight the danger or run from the danger, flight, or freeze, which is basically playing possum, right? Freeze is a paralysis state, right? We play possum so that we don't get hurt or harmed. Right? right? And so we'll have adrenaline course through our body, and so we're either going to lean in, which is a fight response, lean out, which is a flight response, or we're going to freeze and play possum and hope that we don't get hurt. In thinking about our human response to danger and how our amygdala will detect danger, send out the signal for adrenaline to course through our body, and the adrenaline can spur us to either fight, flight, or freeze. I really want to name that humans can do all three. And in one moment, we might be led to fight for safety, but 10 minutes later, we have the desire to run to achieve safety.
Right.
And then sometimes it's just so overwhelming, we become paralyzed in some ways and stuck and frozen. Right. And that's really for safety.
And so it's fair to say that as an unfaithful spouse, we can encounter these fight or flight or freeze on the same day.
In 5 minutes.
Yeah, in the same argument, right?
Yes.
You can have these moments where, I think the unfaithful is like, what is going on? Because my spouse is experiencing all three. And then the betrayed even can go, and maybe you
What's
can speak
happening?
to this. Right. Do you think that the betrayed spouse kind of shames themselves or judges themselves when they're in over their head? One moment they want to fight, the next minute they want to flee, the next minute they want to freeze.
Yes.
I mean, do you feel like, and then they can, these are strong words, but then they can really judge themselves or shame themselves because they're so unpredictable, right?
Yes. I want to add in another layer. Let's add in grief to this conversation.
Right.
Okay. So grief is the human response to loss. So let's go back to attachment. Okay. When we're attached with our person and our person is unfaithful, they have created an attachment break.
Okay.
The betrayed spouse feels attachment distress.
Right.
It can be so deep and profound. They experience a primal panic, a deep animalistic fear that I won't be okay in the world because my person has betrayed me.
And that's an important part, won't be okay in the world. I mean, this is riveting stuff for both spouses, so keep going.
Yes. So in this place of primal panic that can last a long time, it can have waves, it can subside, it can come back. In this place, we've lost safety.
Right.
And so a grief response, grief is a human response to loss. And so grief can look like, if we think about the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, moments of acceptance, right? We cycle through those. So sometimes when I'm working with my couples who've experienced infidelity, they get really confused. Why am I sometimes fighting? Why am I sometimes picturing myself running out the door or leaving this relationship? Why sometimes am I just overwhelmed? I lose my words, I can't think. It's confusing and it can happen in 5 minutes. Part of that is because there's grief involved. The human is responding to loss. And so not only do we have a layer of adrenaline's coursing through their body, they're either going to fight, flight, or freeze, and also they're experiencing this response to loss, which means it's going to look like sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm crying, sometimes I'm bargaining, which is very interesting. Bargaining is like an if-then. If my person hadn't betrayed me, then I would be okay. If I lose weight and I'm more attractive, then maybe he won't leave me. If we go to counseling, then maybe it'll be okay and we'll heal our relationship. That's normal bargaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then crying, sadness, hopelessness, despair is normal. It's a response to loss. But if couples don't know what's happening, that they're being impacted by the adrenaline,
right,
and they're being impacted by grief, if they don't understand that, it looks out of control.
It's
it
chaos.
doesn't make it doesn't make any
manifold
sense.
chaos, and they have no idea. And then, is it safe to say that the unfaithful starts to get incredibly reactive, right? Yes. So on a good day, the betrayed spouse, man or woman, is kind of feeling good, going about life. There isn't outbursts or triggers or reminders. Then there's a huge trigger, and things go from 0 to 100, and like
Yes.
that. Now the unfaithful is incredibly reactive. Oh my gosh, it's over. We're not going to save our marriage. We're done. He or she's going to leave me. It's over. And I have found that, I think, explaining this to the betrayed, that there is this unpredictability of all three stages of grief, and fight, flight, or freeze, all within 30 seconds to 20 minutes. Yeah. And so maybe at this moment you can speak to the fact that this is normal, and that the unfaithful, what can they do? Because I think you've pinned so many situations that we unfaithful go, and I have people message me, Samuel, what do I do? I don't know. So maybe give a few pointers to the unfaithful at this moment that can help them know what the betrayed needs, even with respect to the fact that the betrayed may not know what they need, right?
Yes. Let's go back to talking about fight, flight, freeze, and looking at that by saying fight, let's name that as leaning in. Okay. I'm going to lean in for safety, and it can look like I'm fighting for safety. Then we're going to talk about leaning out, which is the flight, and then we're going to talk about the freeze response. Okay, so in helping the unfaithful partner know what's happening with the betrayed partner, let's look at this leaning in. So betrayed partners lean in by doing three things. They can become hypervigilant. Mm-hmm. One thing betrayed partners will do in their leaning in is that they're looking for safety. Am I safe in the world? Am I safe in the grocery store? Am I safe at church? Am I safe with my friends? Am I safe with my person who's just betrayed me? Mm-hmm. And so they become hyper-vigilant, over-vigilant, always looking for safety.
Right.
They don't feel safe in the world because their person has left them and they have attachment distress.
Got it.
Betrayed spouses will become reactive. That was a word you had used. They will become reactive to perceived abandonment or betrayal.
Right.
Right? So remember, amygdala is scanning for danger. They're vigilant and looking at their person. Are you safe for me, or are you betraying me? Are you abandoning me? Mm-hmm. And so they become aware of even nuances of perceived or real abandonment or betrayal. It might not be abandonment or betrayal, but they're going to look for any sign that might indicate abandonment or betrayal is happening.
Because they're hypersensitive to anything which would communicate to them again more betrayal, more distress.
Yes.
Which is why we unfaithful go, look, I just was 10 minutes late. Or I didn't have, wings at lunch. I had a sandwich. Or it's any little thing, right?
Any nuance that might detect, oh no, more abandonment or betrayal is happening.
And we just talked about a little thing. Then if you shift gears to something major, right, like new information,
right,
and drip feeding more, and there's more affairs or more acting out or more information. Now we have ramped up the leaning in, leaning out, freezing to 7,000 RPMs, right?
Yes. And it's helpful to know, right, when that amygdala is detecting danger, it sends out adrenaline.
Yeah.
And so betrayed partners often get hit with adrenaline multiple times a day because the amygdala is saying, oh no, that might be danger. Oh no, that might be danger.
A good point.
The amygdala can't discern degrees of danger. It's an all or nothing for our amygdala.
Really?
Either that's dangerous or it's not.
So that would explain why sometimes the responses, and I'm going to say this graciously, betrayed, but that would explain why sometimes the responses are so intense for what appears to be a minor detail.
Yeah.
Because the adrenaline shot is like, boom, here we go again.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And then the person has to manage the adrenaline coursing through their body and how that impacts them. There was a story I had heard. It was called The Snake and the Hose. And this is an example of what happens to the amygdala and to what happens when the amygdala detects danger. So imagine that you walk into the back lawn, and as you're walking across the grass, a snake slithers in front of you. Your amygdala goes, ah, danger, snake! And you get hit with the adrenaline, and you're either going to fight the snake or run from the snake or freeze and hope the snake doesn't get you. Okay. Let's imagine you go into the lawn the next day and you go for a walk out in the lawn. Well, somebody has left the garden hose laying on the grass. You walk out and you see the hose, but your amygdala goes, ah, danger, because your amygdala thinks it's a snake. You get the same response. You're going to have adrenaline. You're either going to fight the hose or run from the hose or freeze and play possum and hope the hose doesn't get you. Until you discover, oh, it's just a hose. It's benign. I'm not going to get hurt. Okay, so now we go back to betrayed spouses. They've had the experience of being betrayed. They've experienced primal panic. Their amygdala is now hypervigilant, looking for any signs of danger or threat. The unfaithful is 10 minutes late coming home. The amygdala can't discern
That's a good point.
if that's safety or not. The amygdala goes, 10 minutes late, where's my person?
Here we are again.
Danger, danger.
Here we go again.
Adrenaline's coursing through your body.
Here we go again.
Yes.
And then it comes to, see, we can't save our marriage. It's never going to work. You're never going to be safe. I can't get over this. Why have I even tried? Why keep going? And now we are off to the races, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of how the unfaithful can meet them at this incredible moment of vulnerability and, to your point, lack of safety, right? To meet them in this moment, though we have done and committed a great atrocity, and though we have devastated them, but we are, most of us, really wanting to help them. And I talk all the time about one of the best things that we can do is to lean in and be a safe place for the betrayed's anger or unpredictability or rage, with the boundaries of, when it gets physical, time's up, we need to create space. But help the unfaithful understand that there is a way to at least be somewhat valiant in their efforts to create safety, right?
If I were to give the unfaithful partners 3 things to be on the lookout for, or 3 things to think about when they are seeing the betrayed partner either fight or flight or freeze, those three things would be this. 1, remember that the betrayed partner is experiencing a break in safety, real or perceived. And at that moment, it's irrelevant whether it's real or perceived. It's just a safety break.
And there's no reason for us to preach, teach, or lecture the betrayed on how this is not real and it's all in their head and all that crap, right?
Right, because a biological process is happening.
Exactly.
If the amygdala detects danger, the person will get hit with adrenaline that will spur them to either fight, flight, or freeze. And that's just part of being human. And so trying to rationalize that or logicize through that is pointless.
Right, thank you. I hope so many of you, I hope you unfaithful heard that. It's a biological response, which is going to vary, right? In some people, it may be a PTSD biological response. In others, it just may be an intense shot of adrenaline that they're not going to be able to talk their way through it in that moment.
So knowing, okay, my person is having a biological response to a break in safety. So the next thought is, how do I care for my person as they are experiencing this adrenaline rush and this break in safety? And above all else, I say, do your best to not get defensive. And that's hard to do, especially if our person if the betrayed partner is in fight. And they're interrogating, or they're yelling, or they're demanding safety or explanations. When somebody's in fight, a response could be, we want to back up. or we want to defend ourselves.
Right.
Like, here's what's going on. Defensiveness is going to exacerbate the safety break.
Yeah.
And so I know it's hard to not be defensive, but I think the first thing is go, okay, a biological process is happening. I see my betrayed spouse is being impacted by adrenaline.
Yeah.
Next, don't get defensive, don't get defensive, don't get defensive. Try just to care for him or her.
Right.
And then I think the third thing is we don't always know how someone will feel safe. And so there needs to be a questioning process.
That's good.
Right? I see you are in distress. How can I care for you?
That's excellent.
Would you like a hug? No. Okay, you would not like a hug. Would you like me to sit on the other side of the room but not leave?
Right, exactly.
Okay. But we have to ask people what they want. Sometimes they don't know, but we can't just assume that we know what's going to help them feel safe, because that changes from moment to moment too.
And I think it's completely okay for the unfaithful to humbly ask these questions, because they're not trying to poke at the betrayed or mock them or insult them. They're really helpless. And when you as an unfaithful, and you can echo these thoughts, but when you as an unfaithful feel helpless, feel out of control, whether you're in person or you're at work or you're in the car, I found with Samantha one of the best things that I could do, rather than getting rejected and succumbing to pity and rejection, self-hatred, and shaming myself, and I'm just a worthless piece of crap, I can't, maybe we should quit, maybe we should end it, because all I'm doing is making it about me. But it is totally okay to say, in my case, I would say, Samantha, like, what can I do?
Yeah.
Can I hug you? And she would say, no, I don't want to hug. Had you hugged your affair partner? Okay, great. Would you like me to take the kids or the dogs for a walk and just get out of the house? And then there'd be times, and rightly so, where Samantha would say, I don't know.
Yep.
And I would make the mistake of saying, well, I don't know what the hell we're going to do, because you don't even. That's, I think, a moment where the unfaithful, and I want you to speak to this, can maybe just be there and sit with them in their pain, right?
One of the most helpful things that I learned is that feelings are not facts. Mm-hmm. Feelings are not facts. They're indicators of something. And so when I learned feelings are not facts, when I would get hit with an emotion, I learned I have to kind of ride the wave of this emotion. I can't name that as a truth. So in your example, if Samantha got triggered and she was perceiving danger, and you would try to figure out, how do I care for her?
Yes.
And neither of you knew.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying, in that moment, I might have thought, oh no, catastrophized.
Yeah.
This is the end. We don't know what to do. And instead, I would want to care for you by saying, yes, it is distressing, but the distress doesn't mean this is the end of the relationship.
Yeah.
It means y'all are having a moment of distress.
Right.
That the feeling is an indicator of the experience, but it's not a fact that this means the relationship is over.
Yeah.
All the counseling we did didn't work.
Exactly right. The
back
EMS
to ground
weekend
zero.
was worthless. We spent all this money. It didn't work.
Right.
And then and my final thought, maybe you can speak to this, it's probably incredibly infuriating when we, the unfaithful, now want to fix you. I'm going to fix this. Man, listen, you need to understand, Samantha, that I'm not cheating ever again. This is the worst mistake of my life. You need to understand this is just an emotional response, and I can sense that we unfaithful love to fix this moment, and if I hear you right, it's not really fixable. It's more like you have to endure your way through it, and the best that you can do. And this isn't a fatalistic way of thinking. This is trying to be a healing salve for your betrayed spouse, right? Is trying to make the process safe for them, the betrayed, to feel their way through it. Is that accurate?
What came to mind as you were just talking is that if an unfaithful spouse tries to convince the betrayed partner that no more betrayal is happening and that they are safe, it's probably going to fall flat. Because a betrayed partner needs to see proof and evidence every day, day after day, over a period of time. Like, that's how trust is built, is do I see consistent connection and safety with my person every day, day after day. And so it makes sense that an unfaithful partner will say, I'm not betraying you, nothing else is happening,
Right.
I'm with you, I got you. And though the words matter, that's not enough for her to feel safe, for him, the betrayed partner, to feel safe. They need to see time after time again, my person understands I'm in distress, my person is not getting defensive, and my person is asking, how can I care for you? And then responds appropriately.